I'm going to give you the summary of the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So this is a detailed summary, but some of the unwanted or the minor characters I have avoided. Some of the minor instances I have avoided, and I have tried to include all the important events and the characters. So first of all, Harper Lee is an American novelist who is best known for her 1960 novel To Kill a Mockingbird. It won her the 1961 Pulitzer Prize and has become one of the classics of modern American literature. The plot and characters are loosely held based on Lee's observations about the people whom she encountered and her neighborhood, and also an instance that happened in her hometown in 1936 when she was about 10. So she is like the mouthpiece, the scout. The main character here, Scout, is the mouthpiece of Harper Lee. She deals with the irrationality of adults towards race and class, which is in the deep south sub-region of southern United States of 1930, and depicted all these events through the eyes of two children. This particular work also got some autobiographical elements. As I told you, this is based on some of the observations that Harper Lee made about her, some instances and people that happened in her childhood age. So the character Scout is actually a mouthpiece of Harper Lee. A child's view of race and justice is being seen. How they are affected by the injustice is also being seen. The story is narrated by a young girl named Jean Louise Finch, who is referred to by the nickname Scout. Now she is the mouthpiece of Harper Lee. The some circumstances led to the broken arm of her brother Jem in the beginning, and then she recounts her family history. Like these Finches, their early ancestors was a fur trader and an apothecary, one who sells the drugs like medicines, named as Simon Finch. Then he later fled to England because he was afraid of the religious persecutions, and then he settled in banks of Alabama river where he had his farm. The first Finches to come out of that and to live in town was Scout's father, Atticus Finch, who was a lawyer in the nearby town Maycomb. His brother Jack Finch was a medical was in medical school in Boston. His sister Alexandra Finch decided to stay in the farm and to take care of the landing. Now, this old town shows the grips of Great Depression. Atticus lives with Scout and her brother Jem in Maycomb's main residential street. They have got a cook, California, who takes care of the children and takes care of the household chores. Atticus' wife was dead when Scott was 2, but her brother was 4 years older to her, so he remembers his mother and he used to be very unhappy. In the summer 1933, Jem was 10 and Scout was 6. At that time, a boy, Charles Baker Harris, came next door, whose nickname was Dill, and he came there to stay with his aunt during the vacations. He was a very talkative and intelligent boy, but he did not like to talk about his father, his absence of father in his life. He quickly became Finn children's chief playmate. They acted together. They acted out some of the stories that they have read. When they got bored, Dill suggested how about peeking into Boo Radley, Arthur Boo Radley, who was a mysterious neighbor who never came out of the house. No one has seen him out of his house in past 10 years. Boo, as a boy, he got into trouble with law and his father had imprisoned him as punishment. He was imprisoned in house. 15 years later, he stabbed his father with scissors. But many suggested that he was crazy, but his father was not ready to keep him in the asylum. the old man died and his brother Nathan came and started to live in the house, and Boo Radley, he never came out. Dill was very fascinated with Boo, this neighbor boy, new neighbor boy. He was very fascinated with Boo. They always tried to get his notice. After the vacation, Dill left and Scout prepares to go to school for the first time. She mentions about her teacher who was very poor with children, and the teacher's name is Miss Caroline Fisher. Her father Atticus Finch used to teach her some lessons, and her teacher did not like that she was already educated. So what happened one time is that there was a boy, Walter Cunningham. He was very poor, he was hungry, and teacher gave some money for him to buy food and asked him to return, but he was not in a position to return. When Scott went to explain the situation, she beat her up in her hands with the ruler, and Scout gets angry with Walter and rubs his nose in dirt, but Jem invites him for a lunch. Then Atticus got a new case where a black man, Tom Robinson, was accused of raping a white woman. So there was a new boy, Buris Ewell, who made vicious remarks about the teacher, who is left crying. And when she reaches home, Atticus asks if something was wrong, and then she says she's just unwell and she don't want to go to the school, and she wants her father to teach her, and her father said that he will surely teach her, but she should not tell that to her teacher. After school one day, what happened is that in a tree in the Radley's house, a tin foil was stuck in the knot hole. There will be holes in the trees, right? It was stuck. It was chewing gum. They chews, and she chews, and Jem asked her to spit out because he was afraid. Then after the last day of school, they found 2 Indian head pennies. They takes it. Then Dill returns for vacation, and they have many games. They play many games, and one time they were in the tire. They were playing, rolling one another inside the tire, and Scott falls in front of Radley's steps, and they all panic. So Atticus catches them doing all these things, playing, making a play of Boo Radley and enacting like him. Atticus catches them and asks him not to torment Boo Radley either by their games or by their plays. Jem and Dill become more close because they were of same age, and Scout was left out. She spent some time with Miss Maudie Atkinson, a widow who was the childhood friend of Atticus' brother Jack. She was so much interested in gardening and cake baking, and she told that Boo is still alive, and that how he was a harsh victim of his father, who was a Baptist, who always thought that all people are going to hell. Boo was always polite and very friendly as a child. Most of the rumors about him are false, and if at all he is mad, he may be mad now. In his childhood, he was not at all like that. Jim and Dill plan to give a note to Boo Radley to join them to have ice cream. They sticks a note on the window, and Atticus catches them and asks him not to torment him. He obeys till Dill's last day, and in the last day, both of them, they plan to peep through the loose shutters. Scout also accompanies. They see a man, shadow of a man with hat, and they freeze. There was a gunshot. Jem's pants got caught in the fence, and he had to kick them off. And then there were many neighborhood, all the adults joined, and they said that Nathan Radley showed a Negro. Atticus asked this Jem where his pants was, and Dill just said that they gave his pant in strip poker, some game. So now the Boo is shown from a monster to a human. First he was like considered as a superstition or as an object of ridicule, but now there is a gradual development showing the sympathetic and mature perspective of these children. The next day they found that Jem's pants was mended, which was torn. It was mended and put neatly on the fence. Another day there was a present of a bowl of great wine. Then 3 days they did not take it. Then they understood that it was for them, and they took it. They understood that it is by Boo Radley. Then another day, two figure was carved in soap, which was resembling them. Then they got many gifts. Like why he is carving them in soap is he is actually trying to connect to them. He really wishes to connect to them, to these children. Then they received many gifts like chewing gum, spelling bee medal, old pocket watch. Maybe these are the possessions, the only possessions that he had. The next day, that particular knock hole was filled with cement, and Jem asked Nathan why it was done, and he said he had to do that because the tree was dying. But probably it is because Nathan understood that Bob is trying to connect to these children. Scout became very sad because uh, they were deprived of some connection with this Boo Radley, and that was the end of all the gifts. Then winter happened, snowfall was there, snowman they made. The snowman resembled a man there, so they had to disguise it. All these are the small events that happens. Miss Maudy's house was on fire. Then a blanket was put on Scout suddenly and she panics. Then later they understand that the blanket was put by Bob Radley. Miss Maudy is very positive about all this what happens. They explain all these things to Atticus. Scout fights with a boy, Cecil Jacobs. Why? Because he said an abusive, offensive racial slur just because Scout's father was defending the black man Tom Robinson, a black man who was accused of raping a white woman. Scout hates Jack, her uncle Jack. During the Christmas, they all join in Finchpam, and Alexandra's grandson Francis also says something bad about Dill, and Scout. These children, they hate him, especially Scout. Then later Scout overhears that Tom is innocent, and these children gets interested about this particular case. There was also one Mrs. Dubose whose bushes, camellia bushes, was destroyed by Jem. In punishment, Jem was asked to reach her home and to read. Later she died, and she gave a gift for him, which was one white camellia plant. Now the age differences of Scout and Jem mattered a lot. Tom's wife, because Tom is accused of rape, Tom's wife was not getting any work. Alexandra comes home and she asked to relieve California. Now because of this case, Jim and Scout often becomes object of whispers by others. Like, people always whisper, no, here and there, the gossips. Tom Robinson was moved to jail because they were afraid of a lynch mob. Lynch mob, people are beating a person to death. Sometimes some culprits are beaten to death, right, by people. That's it. There were many threats for Atticus and family. And among those people who came to threat was Walter's father, and Scout was very clever she was. She went and talked to him, and then they all left that place. In chapter 16, the trial begins, and it is in the black people are often seated in the back balcony. Then a witness, Hecate, said that on November 21, Bob it was always said that Tom Robinson was always asked to come home to mend one thing or the other. Okay, and then Hecate said that when he reached home, Mayela was beaten up, and then they told him that it was done by Tom Robinson. He did not see it. Bob Ewell says that Tom Robinson raped her and that they could not show to the doctor because it was very expensive. Now the judge noticed that Bob Ewell was left-handed, so since the beating was on the right cheek of this girl, it must be done by Bob Ewell itself. Mayela was a terrified 19-year-old. She accused him that he took advantage of her and that she had very unhelpful siblings. So Atticus cross-examined her and asked why, because when he was raping, she said that she screamed. Then he said, how comes the other siblings did not hear her? And also, how come she got beating on her right side of cheek when Bob's left hand is useless because it is he lost it. His left hand is not working because in his childhood he had some mishap. That's why. Myla breaks out and she leaves. Tom was always asked to come and do one or another chores. One day when he was asked to fix the door, when he was climbing on the chair, she grabbed him and she made advances, which her father saw and called her an whore. To hide the shame, they accused him of rape. Now, Tom's white employer said that he had no complaints about him. The children are deeply affected by the case, saying that Tom Robinson is purposefully made a criminal. There was physical evidence that Bob was the person who hit her. She had to conceal her shame by accusing rape. California at that time handles a note and says that the children are not home from afternoon. Then they later found out that the children are sitting in the balcony where the colored people are witnessing. They are asked to go and have the supper. They want to watch the trial. They quickly eat and they returns. At 11 o'clock at night, what happens? And the trial again begins. Jim cries, saying the injustice done. They had many threats, and especially Tom Robinson had many threats because that was an capital offense. Rape was capital offense in Alabama. Tom tried to escape and he was shot 17 times. They went to see Helen Robinson. Before even they said that her husband died, she collapsed. And the death was marked as the death of an innocent person. Bob still continued disturbing Helen, continued disturbing the judge, and he thought that the judge and Atticus was actually making a fool out of him. So, you know what happened after a Halloween party when these two children were coming back home, he attacks these children. And actually something happens, the children fall down and Jem was carried and rescued. Later on they understood that it was Boo Radley who rescued him, and it was Boo Radley who killed Bob Evil. But to save him from it, they said that Bob Evil get stamped a particular a root, and he fall down on his own knife. So like that they avoided Boo Radley from all these issues. Then Boo Radley spends some time with Scott, and then he goes back to the house and he remains there. And at the end what happens is that these children, they faced this, they saw all these realities of life, and Scott embraces her father's advice that she would practice sympathy and understanding, and she also demonstrates that these experiences of hatred and prejudice that she has experienced will not take away her faith in human goodness. And this is the lesson of this particular novel. Okay, so I hope you understood it. Thank you.